Carnival's sins and Catherine's wins. I am, as always, your host, Christopher Paul Dugdale, MEDMA. We are Duncanville High School in these United States, and today is November 11th, 2020. And on this date in history, 102 years ago today, World War I ended at 11 a.m. So, horrible war that lasted a long period of time and bad things. So, everyone, remember today. Today is Veterans Day. So, if you know anyone who's a veteran, remember anyone who served in our military is a veteran. Okay, they don't have to have fought in a war, and they definitely don't have to have died in a war. But we honor everyone who served today. So, have a great day, and a great day. Well, nothing's more fun than starting off a lesson with Carnival, okay, or Carnival. This is a celebration that starts before the end of Lent. This is whenever you try and get out all of your sinning that you can in as close to a short time as possible, so that then you can ask for forgiveness and be better. So, prostitution, alcohol, just insanity, whatever you want to do, that is the time. That is the time to do that. Okay, to keep the people in Great Britain from revolting, there was a real push to make alcohol more affordable for the masses. Okay, in Britain alone, it was advertised drunk for a penny, dead drunk for two. So, they want to do everything they could to keep people from fighting on the streets, and you do that by keeping them passed out. There was a lot of blood sports going on. You had bare knuckle fisticuffs. So bare knuckle boxing in the streets. You have cockfighting. And for those of you who've heard that term but never know what it is, it's whenever they get roosters and they make them fight. They've been known to attach razor blades to their claws, I guess. If you want, I can call it a talon. It's not correct, but it makes it sound more ferocious. And also chaining up a bear and setting out attack dogs. So these are exciting things you could find if you were into these type of events. The Volksschulen, okay? I don't know why I put this in the same grouping, but I don't know, maybe it belongs here. This is state-supported primary school in the Habsburg Austrian Empire. Okay, so this is a basic education for everyone that wanted to go. It's not mandatory, but it's available. So, with the papacy, has been declining in power since really I don't know, you could go back to the Great Schism, but really it all starts to fall apart with Martin Luther and the Protestant Reformation. Their last grasp at trying to get power back really fails with the 30 Years' War. Okay. The official soldiers for the Pope, the Jesuit order, they get banned in 1773 by the Pope. At one point, the Jesuits controlled Paraguay, and they were banned from Paraguay. Portugal, their lands were taken away, they were pushed out of there, and in France. But eventually the Pope would reinstate them in 1841, so after about 40 years, the Jesuits were allowed back. Some of them were practicing without the umbrella of the church, still in favor of the church, but not with the support of the church. Okay, the Toleration Patent of 1781, Austrian Joseph II. He's going to recognize Catholicism for public practice, but allow private practice of Lutherans, Catholic, Calvinist, Greek Orthodox, and well, before I get to the Jews, let's talk about this for just a minute. So the majority of people that are going to be practicing Lutheranism, Calvinism, or Greek Orthodox are people that are going to be practicing in the privacy of their own home, which means that they have plenty of money. This is not something that really benefits the poor or the everyday person. This is just for the wealthy, and it's a way of preventing revolution. As far as the Jews in Austria, they could own land, they could hold titles, and they could practice Judaism. Okay, but again, the majority of people couldn't afford to take advantage of this. Okay, so the Declaration of Human Rights. Okay, Holland is one of the first nations to declare the separation of church and state. Okay, this is one of the first countries in Europe. This is something that kind of goes with the bylaws of the United States, but not to the degree that it does in Holland. Now that those rights are protected a lot more over time. Okay, piety, religious devotion, and personal relationship with God, taking out rationalism. Okay, so it's kind of a push back to the church. The Catholic piety. This is the church considered people more superstitious than devout. Most of the reasons that they were practicing was because of fear what would happen if they didn't practice. Okay. Protestant revivalism. German Count Nicholas von Zinzendorf, he starts a pietist revival to revive the Lutheran religion and Lutheran Church. And this is going to spread to the Americas during colonization. So these are all different attempts of the church, one church or another church trying to keep its hold in this age of Enlightenism where people are questioning everything. That's the whole point behind most of these changes. Okay, Enlightenment religion. Okay, so this is kind of where we were just a moment ago. Okay, most philosophes attacked the Christian churches, but you still have a majority of Europeans that were devout believers. Okay, John Wesley, for instance, is a missionary who would bring these glad tidings of salvations. Okay, and so he would speak to people outside. Okay, this is kind of one of those moments where they don't take them entirely seriously because they're meeting outside. Methodism will appeal to the lower classes. They're against alcoholism and economic struggles. These are things that they're trying to combat with the religion. Okay, now we move to enlightened absolutism. Okay, these are leaders that are drawn to Enlightenment rationalities. Now, these are still rulers that are ruling by themselves without support of anyone else. Okay, so don't get the idea that this has made everyone democratic, but there are some moves towards some democratic principles. Okay, so they would introduce some of these famous philosophers to the state to talk to them. I think I mentioned some of this the other day with Voltaire, who actually this will lead into an affair with Catherine the Great, to whom he will insult whenever he returns back to France. Okay, they're all about consolidating their power, trying to take away the separation of powers that was established in some places by things like in Great Britain. Okay, with the Glorious Revolution, the English Bill of Rights, these type of things is what they're trying to keep from happening. So. In other countries. Okay, there's major revolutionary movements that are going to come out of this in a lot of these countries. Okay, really between 1829, 1828, and I don't know, probably 1881. There's major revolutionary movements throughout Europe. You have you have a revolution in almost every country during this time. In France, there's like 57 of them. Actually, those start back in the 1780s. But on top of that, you have, the creation of Germany, the creation of Italy. So a lot more of a modern Europe, for better or for worse, is coming out of this time period. Okay. People are questioning traditional authorities. This is all part of the Enlightenment movement. And Joseph II is the only person who really brings out change. And unfortunately, most of the changes he brings are not going to be long lasting. his heir is going to undo most of the things that he does. Uh, Landed aristocracy is going to hold most of the power through this. Okay? So 18th century warfare. Okay? These are very highly trained and professional armies. This is something that had started a little bit earlier with Sweden's the first country to really have a highly trained professional army, and it just slowly is going to filter through the rest of the world, especially Europe. Okay. French armies grew from 1740 to 1780 from 190,000 to 300,000. Prussia goes from 83,000 to 200,000. Austria 108,000 to 282,000, and Russia from 130,000 to 290,000. Okay. To be an officer, it was not by merit, so they didn't take the best minds and give them these positions. You basically would, you would have these responsibilities as landed aristocracy. Okay. So don't get the idea that they were all like, whoever's the best fighter will be the best leader. It all was based on who you were and your family members on what type of titles that you would hold. Okay, so your normal soldiers were lower class. They also had a lot of foreign troops involved. The Germans were notorious for being mercenaries during this time. Uh, Very expensive training took place. You had to spend a lot on supplies and for weapons, for clothing, for tents, for guns, munitions. All of these things had to be paid for, and all of these uniforms would bring a certain type of show to it, so you could march them through the streets, and people would look out and see them walking through the streets in their uniforms, and it inspired more people to want to join. Okay, Britain also has an 80,000 man army. Okay, Prince Frederick William I. Okay, he creates what's called the General Directory, and they were in charge of leading the government, the military, the police, and the financial affairs. Okay, the Junkers, or nobility, and landed aristocracy still dominated Prussia. So to control Prussia, you had to get the help of the nobility, which was also known as Junkers. So now we move on to Prussian Frederick II, or Frederick the Great, someone who really deserved that name. Okay, so whenever he takes over, one of the first things he does is he enlarges the army because he sees a conflict coming. He conquers Silesia. Okay, at one point he's being attacked on all sides. He's being attacked by Russia. He's being attacked by France and by Austria. Okay, so he has large armies coming in from each location. He had allied himself with Great Britain in a war, and he was actually able to hold off all of these countries pretty much by himself. As a leader, he practiced religious toleration, which was something that didn't happen in a lot of places in Europe at the time. In his work, Forms of Government, he specified a role for each social group in society that would lead to the smooth operation of a state. Okay? One of the big mistakes that he made, and you know, I guess one of the biggest arguments in the favor of him really being Frederick the Great, was the fact that he removed a lot of his father's policies on merit to favor the Junker class. The Junker class were the wealthier ones, and he really wanted to, keep their support. But in truth, for building a stronger economy and stronger government, he really probably should have kept everything more towards merit, much like his his father. Okay, let's see. So he does codify laws, and kind of is one of the first people to really do this. Now, Napoleon will do this, and it'll be a lot more effective when he codifies laws in in the 19th century. Sometime after 1800, when he's going through and into his territories, and trying to make more consistent laws from territory to territory. Well, anyway, so that is Prussian Frederick the Great. Now, this is Maria Theresa. Maria Theresa's father did everything in his power to make sure that she was set up to be successful in her role. Okay? So, one of the things that she has to do is after she loses Silesia to Prussia, okay? By the way, she's the leader of Austria. She is the Empress of Austria, okay? So, she limits the role of provincial assemblies in taxation and local administration, and she divides Austria into 10 provinces and districts that are administered by people that answer to her, royal officials. So this is an attempt at trying to rule the country in zones instead of trying to rule everything by yourself. It's more of a shared power, okay? Much more of an enlightened rule than some of the other leaders that we have. Succeeded by Joseph II, okay? And he really tries to push through reform. He gets rid of serfdom. He gives religious freedom and toleration to minorities. So it's not just the wealthy that can practice whatever religion they want. He tries to make it possible for everyone. They have freedom of the press there, okay? And so with legal equality for the majority of people that live there, he goes against the Pope's wishes in taking control of Austrian Catholicism. Okay, so he was an advocate of physiocracy. So basically, he was a fan of the physiocrats and Adam Smith's Wealth of Nations. Okay, he makes over 10,000 edicts or laws to help the people and help a lot of the common men. Okay, now most of the things that he does were reversed after he dies. Okay, and in the Edict of Idle Institution, he tries to disband all the unproductive monasteries and create secular hospitals to take care of everyone, from the wealthy down to the poorest of the poor. Again, most of these things are taken away by his successor. Now moving on to Catherine the Great. Okay, Catherine the Great actually, when she was younger, didn't seem like she would ever move into any type of important role, but eventually she will through a marriage make her way into the leader of her country. She will stage a coup d'etat against her own husband, and even though she was German by birth, she does quite an incredible job. Okay, and much the way that, in a very Machiavellian way, she was very practical in the way that she ruled. And during her reign, she will add more territory to Russia than any other ruler. She and Peter the Great really make the greatest expansive gains in the history of the Russian Empire. You can really look to both of them for that. So they took land from the Ottoman Empire, and also they'll take large chunks of Poland, which we'll talk about in a few minutes in what's called the Poland Partition. Okay, she had many advisors from all the world. She invited several of the philosophers to come and be with her, and this does include Voltaire, who made the crudest of comments about her skills in the bedroom. Okay. In her instruction to the Legislative Commission, she writes in favor of reason and equality. So, basically enlightened absolutism, where she is trying to, do most of this herself, but use a lot of enlightened principles in her rule. She creates schools for girls. She abolishes torture and capital punishment. So Caesar Beccaria really had an influence on her as well. Okay, and we're not entirely done with her yet, so just hold on for just. Okay, so the Russian Charter of the Nobility will liberate nobility from state service. And all these things here are done under, well, while she's while she's in power. This is still under Catherine the Great, like the Pugachev revolt. Emelian Pugachev, he gets all types of supporters, and he's trying to free peasants from all taxes and military service. This was something that was extremely popular. Okay, and in doing this, he goes out and kills 1,500 estate owners. Okay, you know, you could liken in some ways to a lesser degree what happens in the United States. You know, a couple of years later in 1830 with the Nat Turner rebellions. Okay, where they kill their masters. I mean, this is they're not slaves, but they are killing the estate owners that control everything they do, everywhere they go, everything about them. Ultimately, Pugachev is captured, tortured, and killed, okay, by his own men. And Catherine the Great will brutally put down this rebellion. This is one of the this is the largest peasant revolt in history. Now, again, Catherine the Great is really trying to put another face forward to the rest of the world, and so she gets Gregory Potemkin to build a fake village, which is kind of the model for other Russian cities. But this is done just to impress foreigners with the greatness of Russia. In reality, no one else lives like they do in this village. But this village is kind of, you know, to show the rest of the world, look at what Russia has become. The Dutch Republic, okay? The Dutch Republic started to fall apart during this time period, okay? They have a major economic decline, okay? There are a lot of people within the nation that were trying to push for reform. This included a lot of artisans, a lot of merchants, and a lot of shopkeepers, okay? But eventually they're going to be shut down by a group of Prussians. These patriots that were pushing for all of this change in the Netherlands. Now Poland, which has appeared and disappeared more than a magician in Las Vegas, becomes really the target of Austria, Prussia, and Russia. Okay, again, Prussia is what the country that would ultimately become Germany. Okay, and you have two major Prussian regions that were separated by Polish territory, and then you have a lot of other land that would be really great for farmland. And so, over a 23-year period, it will be torn apart by Austria, Prussia, and Russia, piece by piece over the years. Okay, so Poland, if you remember with the Sejm, doesn't have the ability to really do. The leader of Poland doesn't really have the ability to do anything. Anyone that's in their parliament or Sejm has the right to veto what the leader wants to do, or really what the country wants to do. So they're not able to create any type of tax system, or really put together a standing army, or any sense of government and power to prevent this type of thing from happening. And really, in three big foul swoops, they will be torn to pieces when Russia, Prussia, and Austria will go and seize parts of the country. So, you can see that they grab just a little bit in the beginning, then there's a bigger leap in the middle, and then at the end they just collapse and take it all. Okay, so I don't know what Austria was doing in 1793, so they couldn't have grabbed a little bit more, but anyway, say goodbye to your little friend. Okay. By the way, all these areas that were taken by Russia were done under the reign of Catherine the Great. Okay, and the Prussian areas, this first one that connected, the two areas of Prussia here, West Prussia with the east, that's done under the reign of Frederick the Great. And if you're curious, this part right here was done under Maria Theresa. And anyway, so Spain, you have Philip the Fourth or the Philip the Fifth. I don't know why I can't count. Philip the Fifth tried to centralize the Spanish government, laws, and language. What he was trying to do was try and save the Spanish Empire from completely falling apart. Okay, and the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, they took Italian and Dutch territories were taken from Spain, and ultimately this is going to be something that's helpful to Spain because they had expanded so far that they were not able to financially control everything they controlled. They, at one point, they had this vast empire in Europe and in the Americas, and all that cost money to maintain. Okay, Charles the Third, who would succeed Philip the Fifth, he banished the Jesuits during his time in power, and he will try and modernize the infrastructure of Spain by building new roads, canals, and banks. Okay, Portugal, I know we haven't talked much about them lately, but Portugal's really not doing much on their own anyway. Uh, so, uh, so what you have here is a chief minister or someone who handled all the finances. Okay, in 1755, Portugal had a massive earthquake that destroyed 85% of the buildings and cities, and 50,000 people were killed. Okay, and so he helps rebuild the country. Okay, he also limits the power of church and the power of the church until he dies. So again, the Catholic Church controlled what was going on in Portugal. Portugal kind of really drops off the map pretty quickly. Uh, Swedish King Gustavus III, he tries to really change what's going on in Sweden. He establishes freedom of speech in the press and religion. He outlaws torture. They have a laissez-faire economy. There are tariffs to protect the economy, and he is ultimately assassinated by nobles. Okay, so you see really a series of attempts by people in Prussia and Russia and Austria and Spain and really the Netherlands, Portugal, and even Sweden to embrace these Enlightenment ideas and put them into the government. So this brings us to the end of yet another day. So I want to tell everyone have a great day. Uh, we're doing pretty well here. Uh, I'll see all of you soon in 2 days. So have a great night. If I can stop this.